Many famous artists, despite their exceptional talent and public adoration, had to hide their true sexuality to protect their careers. In an industry filled with judgment and prejudice, keeping their true selves hidden became essential to maintain their public image and secure opportunities to shine. They had to live in the shadows, facing immense pressure to avoid harming their careers, even concealing their real relationships and emotions. But sometimes, the truth cannot stay hidden forever, and it's these stories of sacrifice, courage, and the journey to self-acceptance that have turned them into legends. Join us as we explore the stories of these artists. If you find their stories interesting and moving, don't hesitate to leave a like and share the video to spread the message of bravery and self-acceptance. What happens when love and fame intertwine in secrecy? For Boy George, it was a story filled with heartbreak, hidden letters, and one of the most controversial breakups in pop music history. As the frontman of Culture Club, Boy George was known for his flamboyant style and powerful voice. But behind the spotlight, he was living a secret and tumultuous romance with the band's drummer John Moss. Their relationship inspired some of Culture Club's biggest hits, including Do You Really Want to Hurt Me in Time, Clock of the Heart. But as the band reached its peak, tensions between them escalated. The constant pressure to keep their relationship a secret led to explosive arguments. Years later, Boy George admitted to burning private letters from Moss, saying, "I had to let go of the past." Despite legal battles and public disputes, he later insisted, "I don't hate John." Their love was both Boy George's greatest inspiration and deepest regret. Did you know this romance almost destroyed Culture Club? Stay tuned for more hidden stories from the world of pop music. What if one of the most openly gay musicians of the 80s still had something to hide? Andy Bell, the lead singer of Erasure, broke barriers by becoming one of the first openly gay pop stars. But while confident on stage, he kept his personal life remarkably private. In a rare confession, Bell shared, "When I was 17, I had both a girlfriend and a boyfriend, but I kept it a secret." He chose to protect his private life from media scrutiny, allowing him to focus on his music. In 1998, Bell was diagnosed with HIV but kept it hidden for years. Instead of letting the illness define him, he became an inspiration to millions with his courage and resilience. Few fans truly understand how much Andy Bell endured both personally and professionally. His voice healed hearts, while his personal struggles remained unseen. Want to uncover more untold stories of rock and pop legends? Stay tuned. What if a rock icon openly admitted his attraction to another legendary musician? Pete Townshend, the legendary guitarist of The Who, has long sparked curiosity about his sexuality. In his autobiography, he wrote that he was probably bisexual, but never publicly discussed relationships with men. His song Rough Boys is widely considered a coded admission of his attraction to men, a song Townshend later referred to as his coming-out track. He also shocked the public by confessing, "Mick Jagger is a very sexy man. I was really attracted to him sexually." Despite these revelations, Townshend maintained an air of ambiguity. This mix of mystery, rock star energy, and hidden truths only deepened his legendary status. Did Mick Jagger ever know? In a more accepting era, would things have been different? What other secrets of rock history remain hidden? What if one of rock's most influential voices kept his true self a secret for decades? Michael Stipe, the enigmatic frontman of REM, did just that. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Stipe refused to label himself, fueling speculation about his sexuality. In 1994, he hinted, "I am an equal opportunity lek," implying attraction to both men and women. But it wasn't until 2001 that Stipe fully came out, revealing that he had been in a 3-year relationship with a wonderful man. His decision to come out was more than just personal. It reshaped his identity. "Coming out made me a better person," Stipe later reflected. He also challenged traditional labels, stating, "Queer is a more inclusive term." Though he kept his truth hidden for years, Stipe left behind a legacy beyond music, one that gave a voice to those still searching for their own. If he had come out sooner, could he have changed rock history? Imagine dedicating your entire career to fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, only to be turned away by the very community you stood for. That is exactly what happened to Tom Robinson. In the late 1970s, his song "Glad to Be Gay" became an anthem of the gay liberation movement. But in the 1980s, Robinson shocked fans when he fell in love with a woman, Sue Brierley. The backlash was immediate. Critics accused him of betraying the movement he had once championed. To defend himself, Robinson wrote, "If gay liberation means freedom for everyone, then a label isn't liberation at all." But the damage had been done. At London Pride 1987, he was booed and forced off stage. Despite this, Robinson continued to fight for equality, proving that sexuality is not always black and white. His story forces us to reconsider the true meaning of acceptance. Was Robinson misunderstood, or was he a hypocrite? What do you think? Stay tuned as we uncover more untold stories from the world of music. What if the life of a musician was just as strange as the art they created? Klaus Nomi is proof that reality can be just as surreal as fiction. A pioneering figure in New York's underground scene in the late 1970s, Nomi blended opera with sci-fi aesthetics, creating a sound and image unlike anyone else. He was openly part of the LGBTQ+ community, but kept his personal relationships private, adding to his otherworldly persona. Tragically, he was one of the first celebrities to die from AIDS in 1983, before the world truly understood the epidemic. Even in death, Klaus Nomi remained an enigma. Did you know he designed his own costumes, merging opera style with space-age visuals? His influence can still be seen in today's artists. Nomi's story is a haunting reminder of brilliance lost too soon. But how many others lived in silence, afraid to reveal their truth? What if becoming a pop legend meant hiding your true self? Marc Almond, the voice behind Tainted Love, learned that fame came with a cost. Ruling the charts in the 80s, Almond struggled with his identity in a world not yet ready for full acceptance. "I never felt comfortable as an openly gay man," he admitted. Despite his flamboyant stage presence, he described himself as a glittering recluse. His first love, at just 11 years old, was stolen from him by societal pressure. Even at the height of his fame, Almond faced violent attacks simply for being who he was. Behind the scenes, he found refuge in heaven, London's famous nightclub, where Freddie Mercury once lifted him onto the dance floor. Despite his struggles, Almond's music became a symbol of defiance. But was fame worth the price he paid? What happens when a pioneering artist is erased from history before they can become a legend? Jobriath should have been a superstar, but his career was over before it could truly begin. In the early 1970s, Jobriath became the first openly gay rock star. His manager hyped him as the future of rock and roll, but the industry was not ready. His debut was ridiculed, radio stations refused to play his music, and he was blacklisted. Forced into obscurity, Jobriath abandoned the spotlight and reinvented himself as Cole Berlin, a cabaret singer. His biggest dream was to perform at the Paris Opera House, appearing as Marlene Dietrich atop a miniature Empire State Building. But that dream never came true. He died of AIDS in 1983, forgotten by an industry that once called him a star of the future. Would Jobriath thrive in today's world, or was he doomed from the start? If a song could define a movement, You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real, is the anthem of resilience. Dubbed the Queen of Disco, Sylvester was proud, larger than life, and revolutionary. But behind the glamour, his heart held secrets. Though he openly embraced his gender-fluid identity and shattered norms, Sylvester was deeply private about his relationships. Friends revealed that his romances were his sanctuary, a safe space away from a judgmental world. As the AIDS crisis loomed, Sylvester's music became a beacon of hope. When he learned of his diagnosis, he ensured that his legacy would live on, donating all future royalties to HIV/AIDS charities. Even in death, Sylvester kept fighting. But did he hide a part of himself that the world never saw? Or was music the only love he ever truly needed? Luther Vandross spent his entire life singing about love, yet he was never able to publicly embrace his own. Rumors about his sexuality swirled for decades, but Vandross never confirmed or denied them. His close friend Patti LaBelle later revealed, he had so many female fans, and he didn't want to hurt them. Privately, Vandross feared that coming out could destroy his career and devastate his mother. In 1985, a British magazine falsely claimed he had AIDS due to his weight loss, forcing Vandross to take legal action to defend his reputation. The scrutiny he faced reflected the intense pressures of the era. Despite Never Too Much being a breakthrough hit, the industry confined him to R&B, preventing him from reaching full mainstream success. Had he lived in a different time, could Luther Vandross have soared even higher? Can one statement change an entire life? Johnny Mathis learned the hard way. In a 1982 interview, Mathis casually remarked, "Homosexuality is a lifestyle I have grown accustomed to." When this statement was made public, chaos erupted. Death threats flooded in, forcing him into silence for decades. Mathis avoided the subject for years. It wasn't until 2017 that he openly reflected, "I come from San Francisco, but even there, being gay wasn't always easy." From accidental outing to a lifelong struggle for acceptance, Mathis's story highlights the challenges faced by LGBTQ+ artists. Imagine having to hide your true self just to keep singing about love. What if one of the greatest musicians, who worked with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, had a secret that could have changed everything? Billy Preston was a musical prodigy, but his personal struggles were kept in the shadows. Despite his legendary status, Preston never publicly acknowledged his sexuality, fearing industry backlash. Friends later confirmed his relationships with men, but he never spoke of them. On top of his fear of exposure, Preston battled addiction and legal troubles, signs of deeper internal conflicts. His talent took him to the biggest stages in the world, yet his personal life remained one of the industry's best-kept secrets. Did you know he was the first artist to perform at the Houston Astrodome? But his greatest battle was the one he fought in silence. If Billy Preston had lived more openly, would his career have reached even greater heights? Would the world see Janis Joplin differently if her untold love stories had been known? She was wild, untamed, and deeply passionate, but her greatest romances remained hidden. Most people remember Joplin's relationships with men, but she also had deep and passionate affairs with women. In 1963, she fell for Jay Whittaker, an African-American lesbian she met in San Francisco. But societal pressures and racial tensions led to heartbreak. Later, Joplin had an on-and-off relationship with fashion store owner Peggy Caserta. "We were together from 1966 to 1970, Caserta recalled, describing their relationship as electric but chaotic. Despite her fierce stage presence, Joplin longed for love and acceptance. "I made love to 25,000 people on stage," she once said, "but I still go home alone." Had she lived in a more accepting time, would her music and her life have been different? A voice that captivated the world, yet the deepest love stories remained behind closed doors. Dusty Springfield was an icon, but her most meaningful relationships were kept in secrecy. In 1970, in a rare moment of honesty, she admitted, "I know that I can be as deeply moved by a woman as by a man." Yet, she remained fiercely private. Springfield had a romantic relationship with photojournalist Faye Harris, and later held an unofficial commitment ceremony with actress Taida Bracci. Hiding her true self wasn't easy. Springfield struggled with depression and addiction, possibly worsened by the pressure of living in secrecy. "Being gay in my time was already difficult," she once said. "Did you know that Son of a Preacher Man was originally meant for Aretha Franklin?" Springfield made it her own, just as she did with the love stories she had to keep hidden. What if one of heavy metal's most masculine icons had a secret that could change the genre forever? Rob Halford of Judas Priest lived that reality for decades. In the testosterone-fueled world of 1980s metal, Halford felt he had no choice but to hide his identity. "I thought coming out would destroy Judas Priest," he later admitted. Even as the embodiment of rock's tough guy image, he had to conceal his truth. But in 1998, Halford shocked the world by declaring in an interview, "I feel it's time to discuss this." Instead of losing his career, he was met with overwhelming support from both the LGBTQ+ community and metal fans. "It was an incredible moment to finally be myself," he later reflected. For years, he had been riding Harley-Davidsons onto the stage, breaking stereotypes without anyone realizing. But had he come out sooner, could it have changed the face of heavy metal forever? What if the man who invented rock and roll spent his entire life fighting the very thing that made him unique? Little Richard's story is one of both tragedy and trailblazing. With hits like Tutti Frutti, he shattered musical boundaries. But behind the scenes, he wrestled with his sexuality. In 1995, he admitted, "I've been gay all my life." But in a heartbreaking turn, he later renounced his truth, calling homosexuality unnatural, a result of deep-seated religious guilt. He spent his life feeling too black, too flamboyant, too righteous to be fully accepted. Though he pioneered a genre that was later taken over by others, he never received the full recognition he deserved, perhaps in part because of his identity. "I was one of the first openly gay men," he once said. But was the world ever truly ready for Little Richard? Or did he pay the highest price for being ahead of his time? What if one of rock's greatest icons declared himself bisexual, only to later regret it? David Bowie blurred the lines of identity like no one else, but even he struggled with the consequences of being himself. In a bold 1976 Playboy interview, Bowie shocked the world by stating, "It's true, I'm bisexual." The LGBTQ+ community embraced him, but years later, Bowie backtracked, calling it the biggest mistake of my life. He claimed the statement had damaged his career in a conservative America. Rumors about his relationships never faded, especially the one involving Mick Jagger. His song, John, I'm Only Dancing, was widely seen as a bisexual anthem, hinting at deeper truths he rarely discussed. Was Bowie's sexuality just another persona in his artistry, or was he hiding in plain sight? What happens when a pop icon spends his entire life hiding his biggest secret, only for it to be revealed in the most humiliating way? George Michael lived with that fear until everything changed in 1998. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Michael carefully concealed his same-sex relationships, fearing they would ruin his career. But in 1998, scandal struck. He was arrested for public lewdness in a restroom. The story made headlines worldwide. Rather than denying or feeling ashamed, Michael faced it head-on. "I don't feel ashamed. I feel stupid, reckless, and weak, but I don't feel ashamed." Overnight, his honesty turned him into an LGBTQ+ icon. Despite the scandal, his career continued to thrive, proving that talent always outshines tabloid gossip. But if he had come out earlier, would George Michael's story have been different? Or was that moment what truly set him free? If one of the world's most flamboyant performers had to hide his true self for years, would his journey have been different? Elton John went through a roller coaster of deception, love, and heartbreak before finally finding himself. In the late 1960s, before fame, he was engaged to Linda Woodrow, a woman who supported him through tough times. But just weeks before the wedding, Elton walked away, a painful moment that inspired his song, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. By 1970, he had begun his first same-sex relationship with manager John Reed. 6 years later, he publicly declared himself bisexual, but the world wasn't ready. In 1984, Elton shocked everyone by marrying Renate Blauel, but later admitted, "I was living a lie." In 1992, he finally came out declaring, "I'm completely comfortable being gay." Would Elton John's career have been different had he come out sooner? Or did he need time to truly become himself? If one of the greatest rock performers in history kept his biggest secret until the very end, was it protection or a sacrifice? Freddie Mercury lived a life of flamboyance, yet his deepest truth remained in the shadows. In the early 70s, Mercury fell deeply in love with Mary Austin, even proposing to her. But soon after, he confessed his truth, ending their romance, but not their love. Mary remained his lifelong confidant, and Mercury left her his London mansion, telling her, "You would have been my wife anyway, so it's yours." As his fame skyrocketed, Mercury had a secret relationship with David Mins, an American record executive. But it wasn't until 1985 that he found true love with Jim Hutton, an Irish hairdresser who stayed by his side until the end. Freddie called Jim his husband, but the world never truly saw their love story unfold. Did Mercury's secrecy protect him, or did it rob him of something greater? Thank you for following along and exploring these inspiring stories of courageous artists who faced prejudice and sacrificed so much to maintain their careers. These journeys are not just personal struggles, but powerful messages about accepting oneself and living authentically. We hope that through these stories, we can learn to embrace and love people for who they are, no matter how different they may seem. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to leave a like and share the video to spread the message of love and courage. See you in the next video.